Welcome to another Flower Power Live. And today we're going to be looking at one of my favorite plants that grows in my garden for its beautiful fall colors. However, this plant is a wee bit vilified. This wild plant is goldenrod, and it's so often falsely accused of causing seasonal or late summer hay fever allergies, and it's innocent. I'm telling you, it's innocent. You may be wondering who the culprit is, but before we get into that and solve this mystery, I want to tell you a little bit about the history of goldenrod. So my name is Allison from the Well Cultivated Life, and thank you so much for joining me here for another Flower Power. I love sharing my plant wisdom with all of you, and I hope you like it too. So the plant goldenrod is Solidago species, and it's a prolific perennial that grows all throughout North America and also in Europe, the whole northern hemisphere basically. And there are about 40 species in North America, and they're spread now over the last few centuries also to Europe, which originally only had one species of Solidago, which was the Solidago virga aurea. And during Elizabethan times, it was thought to be a pretty desirable medicine. And there's a funny story that I got from this lovely book called Forget Me Not, A Floral Treasury. And this book has a lot of different sorts of plant lore and flower language in there. And according to Pamela Todd, the author, it says that it was brought from abroad in a dried state and sold in London markets by herb women for as much as ½ crown an ounce. However, when it was discovered growing in Hampstead ponds, its value crashed, which, according to Gerard, who was the kind of famous herbalist of the time, he said, "This plainly set forth our inconsistency and sudden mutability, esteeming no longer of anything, how precious soever it be, than whilst it is strange and rare." So in other words, the ladies of the time simply had to have it until they discovered it was simply a local weed, and its value plummeted, regardless of the fact that it was a valuable medicine. Such shallow people. But anyway, so traditionally, some other cool things about it, it was used, it's not a woody perennial, but it does have kind of woody stalks on it. And so these stalks were used as divining rods to find not only water, but also silver and gold. And that's part of the reason why it has the goldenrod name, also known as a few other names, woundweed and Aaron's rod. So it was also used to make a dye, a yellow dye, obviously, back in the day. Now, one of the many species here of Solidago that grow in North America, it's the Solidago canadensis, which is usually used for the medicinal purposes. So the major constituents of goldenrod are flavonoids, tannins, essential oils, and bitters. And bitter it is. So while you could harvest it and dry it and make it into a tea, it is very bitter taken in that way. So it's usually made into an alcohol extract or a type of a tincture. And as I hinted above, goldenrod has been falsely accused of as the source of late season hay fever. And the thing is, the opposite could not be more true. One of the primary constituents in goldenrod is quercetin, which is also found in one of my favorite plants, nettles. And so this quercetin is an anti-inflammatory that can really be effective in helping to reduce this kind of histamine response that we get from different kinds of allergens. So a extract of goldenrod can be taken regularly. It's not really for acute. I mean, it helps with acute but you're supposed to take it, you know, sort of daily, so that it kind of builds up your resistance, so that when pollen hits, you're ready, right? Now, a decade ago, when I was taking my formal herbalist training, there was a co-student in the class who had just horrible allergies, and she was on like over-the-counter, not prescription, but over-the-counter allergy medications for like every day of the year, regardless of hay fever. And so when she was introduced to Goldenrod, she started taking it and was actually able to get off of these medications, unless it was like a super intense time of year for pollen. And she also was drinking nettle infusion, and I think she had some other you know, herbal tinctures that she was taking. Just want you to know she was working with an herbalist to help figure out the right sort of ratio and everything for her. So if you're someone that suffers from a lot of allergies like that, you might look into Goldenrod as an herbal ally for you during the hay fever season. Now, it also has an affinity for the kidneys, especially if you have been sick and you kind of need to clear out the kidneys, and you have like a scant or really dark urine still, and its bitter properties also make it useful as an additive to a digestive bitters with other types of plants that are also used for that. But one thing that was interesting that I found is when I was looking up quercetin is this interesting paper published by Muhammad A. et al. In the journal Nutraceuticals. And this is, they've been doing some laboratory research on quercetin. And this is what they had to say in their abstract, was that there's growing evidence suggesting that quercetin has therapeutic potential for the prevention and treatment of different diseases, including cardiovascular disease, cancer, and neurodegenerative disease. These are some pretty heavy hitters, right? So quercetin has been shown to exert antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and anti-cancer activities in a number of cellular and animal models, as well as in humans, through modulating the signaling pathways and gene expression involved in these processes. This is like the epigenetics, right? So if you can change how, you may have genes that might have a tendency towards cancer, but if you can change whether or not those genes express themselves, this would change the whole trajectory of your health. So it's pretty cool. I love plants. I love them. So now back to our culprit, our hay fever culprit. Now you can be sensitive to anything. It's not to say that you couldn't, you know, have some kind of reaction to goldenrod, but one of the important things to note is that goldenrod is not a wind pollinated plant. And generally, most of the seasonal allergies come from wind pollinated plants. Pine, a lot of most trees are wind pollinated, and so they're blowing their pollen all around, and that's why they tend to affect people so much greater. However, there is another plant that blooms right around the same time as goldenrod, and that is ragweed. Now, you've probably heard of this if you are a seasonal allergy sufferer at all. Ragweed is usually the plant people are allergic to during the same season as goldenrod is blooming. Luckily, this has already gone to past pollen. Otherwise, I'd probably be sneezing up a storm in here. So ragweed's the culprit, and because it's wind pollinated. So here it is. It's kind of not that interesting of a plant from a visual point of view. And here's this beautiful yellow flower bloom at the same time. So goldenrod pretty much always takes the blame. Now, let's get to the flower essence. So according to Pacific Northwest Essences, goldenrod flower essence is for people who are feeling kind of discouraged or overwhelmed because they have a big workload or a huge project, and they just like, they're at the bottom of the mountain and they just can't climb it. And this is especially for people who tend to give up really early on in a large task that they need to tackle. And so what goldenrod does, it helps you kind of like think outside the box and get kind of unstuck, so you can kind of move forward with launching a new or difficult project. Now, it gives us a feeling that our work is worthy of our attention and gives us a positive attitude. And, you know, when we're working towards some huge, large goal, it can be quite daunting. So the flower essence helps us to remember our resources and believe in them so we can persevere through the duration of the project. It's also useful for athletes that want to sort of like strengthen their both mind and mental and emotional perseverance. And anyone who hasn't really developed the ability to troubleshoot and overcome obstacles, they don't really have those kind of skills. So it just kind of helps people stay with their task. So now, according to Enchanted Living Life, one of the ways that Goldenrod works as a flower essence is by allowing us not only to find our individuality, but also to have the confidence to stand firmly in it. So we grow more socially confident and less likely to feel the fear of rejection or judgment by our family or social circles. We've developed our clarity and courage, allowing us to stand tall in our true self. So if you feel confident and you have clarity about what you need to get done, you're less likely to worry about what other people are going to think about you and the work that you're doing. So now, surprisingly, Goldenrod was not present in any of the card decks that I have. I don't have a lot. I've got, I think, 4. I can always use more though. Can never have enough card decks. So I decided to pull a card from the Wisdom for Healing cards. Now this card deck I'm going to be using next week in my virtual retreat that I'm running, my 5-day retreat. So you'll be hearing more from the Wisdom for Healing cards next week. And but here we go again. So falsely accused, ignored by the herbalist. What is going on? Poor Goldenrod, right? Well, no longer. So let's take a look at what the message is for Goldenrod tonight. And this card, I love it, is to follow your dreams. Now it has a picture of this man and he's kind of on a quilted landscape and he's looking up at the clouds, and the clouds floating by all have musical notes on them. And I'm a musician and I have a special affection for music. And so I thought, follow your dreams. This is such a beautiful compliment to the flower essence message, right? So here we are, we're moving, we're not stuck, we've gained confidence and clarity. Which direction should we go, and what better direction than to follow your dreams? Now, I didn't mention earlier on, but the meaning of Goldenrod in this book here was precaution. And I think in this case, what we want to do is we need to just sort of let some of that precaution go. It's not a bad idea, but if you're going to move forward, you know, you need to let some of those cautions go. You really have to realize that some of these just are not necessary anymore. So Goldenrod blooms in this brilliant golden glory. This species that grows in my yard can get up to like 5 feet. And this plant is realizing its dream, following its dream of brilliance and shining brightly for all to see. So no matter what others think, no matter if it's misunderstood, rebuffed, or maligned, it still shines. So can you stand in your own brilliance without the need to be validated by other people or society? Because I know that you have dreams and aspirations and inspirations that that were given to you to follow. So don't let others discourage you or judge you and stop you from following those dreams. It's when people do that, it's really most likely that they have let their own dreams die and they don't want to see you reflecting back to them your success, your realization of your dreams, and your moving forward towards your ambitions. So this week, challenge you to take a look at a dream or an ambition. It doesn't have to be some huge thing, right? that you've kind of vacillated about or postponed for a while. This is the message from the card. And just look, what are your excuses for not taking action on this? Are they real, or is it just some fear-based excuse that's keeping you from stepping out? So examine those reasons and make a decision to move forward. And perhaps Goldenrod will help you. Think of this beautiful golden blooms to inspire you into moving forward on your dreams. So that is our message from Goldenrod tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. As I mentioned earlier, I've got my Come Back to Your Senses virtual retreat that's starting next Monday, September 13th. I would love for you to join. It's designed for women who really want to come back to a more calm and connected state of mind, that have maybe a bit of a hectic, scattered energy most of the time, and are looking for just some really simple ways to kind of reclaim, refocus their energy on themselves a little bit more. So I hope you will join me there. I will put the link down below this video. Have a great night, everybody, and I will see you next week. Take care. Bye-bye.